Jordan, what would be your three top technologies that for 2023?
Yeah, so Selfbook, as I mentioned before, is
Yeah.
the company that is just, we tried to invest in them and they closed their initial round before we got in. So I'm still a little bummed about that. But what they've done of just like building over the legacy infrastructure and creating modern experiences without requiring hotels to rip out anything has been super impressive. I think, the user interface design and conversion has been something that's been lacking in the hotel industry for a long time. So it's really cool to see that. They've been picking up some amazing hotel groups really quickly because of the value that they're providing. And I think their roadmap looks really interesting coming forward. I can't talk too much about. I mentioned Actable. So that's the team at ASG where, for disclosure, I'm an advisor. So I'm a little bit biased, but I think what they're doing, the reason that I said yes to those guys, I think what they're doing is really interesting. And to the point earlier about Zapier for hotels and having those workflows that hoteliers can actually see and build those different connections between their tools and how they work. I think what ASG is doing with Actable is really interesting because they're connecting the inputs and outputs software. And I think that's been the problem with a lot of data that we have in the hotel industry is it's a vendor that's providing analytics and thousands of dashboards. And then it's like, okay, well, what do we do with that? And like, if we don't, but now it's to the point where someone at a hotel could say, well, what if we have our housekeepers skip every other floor? And then let's just watch what happens to our housekeeping line on our P&L over the next 3 months and set up a test. So I think really giving hoteliers the tools to make those strategic decisions or changes in their operations and then track it into their actual business outcomes is really, really interesting. We're starting to do some work with Stripe, who's like the global payments provider, like the $100 billion company from Ireland. But what they're doing is a lot of our clients who are the hotel software companies, like, the channel managers and PMSs are built on Stripe, and Stripe is providing them the ability. So historically, the way it would work is like, a PMS would have to integrate with 14 different payments processors, and each region would have 2 or 3 that the hoteliers could choose. And then there would be a lack of coverage. So it's like maybe, a PMS wants to sell into Australia, but now they don't have those integrations yet. So they're kind of like bottlenecked and can't serve that market. And then Australia is missing out on this great new system. So Stripe basically does all the blocking and tackling for these tech companies when it comes to payments. So chargeback risk modeling, alternative payment methods, global compliance. And now it's like all these companies are able to just start building their software and deploying it globally, which is really, really cool. And so we're seeing a lot more companies get on the wagon with that. The other cool thing is that Stripe allows these companies to monetize their payments. So instead of paying a payments processor 3%, and monetize their payments, by the way, in a way that doesn't impact the hoteliers. There's no additional cost to them, and the software companies are getting more resources. So instead of payments processor getting 3%, now a vendor can choose a split with Stripe based on negotiations on the back end. The hotelier still pays the same 3%, or usually actually even lower, but now the vendor is getting 1% of that, and they're able to invest that back into R&D, which ultimately builds more features for the hotelier without the hotelier paying for it. So it's like a win-win, and it's something that we're seeing a lot of companies in the PMS and channel management space get into. I think there's a company called Hirology out of Chicago that does a full stack applicant tracking system and purpose-built hiring software for the hotel industry. Well, it's for multi-location, so they do car dealerships and a couple other verticals as well. But for restaurants and hotels, I think hotels have historically thought of HR as this administrative function. It's like, we're going to put a sign on our glass window in the front of our hotel that says we're hiring. And then we're going to have someone who signs off on all the hiring documents and make sure there's not sexual harassment or all those other, important things. But then it's like, there's no actual hiring strategy. And I think we all know that talent is the most important determinant of business success. And so I think a tool like Hirology can help hotels be more proactive about their hiring strategy. So those are a few. There's a lot of cool stuff going on the market. Going back to your question about has the industry advanced? I mean, we're seeing tons of capital come into this market like never before. That's really why it's takes some of these advisor positions with private equity and venture capital firms. It's trying to help them see the opportunity within the hospitality industry and bring more resources in so that these companies can grow, the ones that you and I both work with. And we're seeing a ton of that. We're seeing a lot of consolidation. So smaller companies getting, bolted into bigger companies that can help them grow faster and deploy some really cool niche tools into a broader set of hotels. So there's a lot of kind of musical chairs going into this, but the pie is growing, hoteliers are getting smarter, and there's just so much cool stuff going on in the industry right now.
Wow. you're right. There is some really cool stuff there, and I think it's just going to benefit the industry. It's great. It's great to hear.